In the couple of days since Dumpy Don and the Republican sycophants forced through a CR bill in order to open up the government, MAGA has figured out exactly what was in that bill, and they are not happy.
You can't keep getting away with it!
You see, despite Congress calling this a clean continuing resolution, that of course isn't the case. This CR is about as clean as Donald Trump's underwear. This bill is filled to the brim with secret provisions, from decimating a $30 billion industry to handing MAGA Republicans hundreds of thousands of dollars, while on top of that, making it easier for your food, water, and alcohol to be contaminated. And at the heart of all of this, of course, is that old demon that haunts all of our dreams, Mitch McConnell. Be sure you're subscribed to Really American, and let me show you the secrets that the Republicans tried to hide in this so-called clean CR. Now, if you listened to these fart suckers, which I don't suggest you do, you would think that this bill to reopen the government was just business as usual.
And make no mistake, this is a clean continuing resolution, so that means no backroom deals, no secret programs or partisan anything. This is just continuing the status quo.
And to be perfectly honest, that is how the fight was framed this entire time that the government was shut down. The main point being about the fight to extend ACA subsidies, and then eventually Trump holding Snap hostage in order to get the Dems to play along, which unfortunately in the end they did.
And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again.
Unfortunately, the bill that the Democrats agreed to is far from incredible. There are enough poison pills in that CR to pull a Jonestown, and all of them are absolutely dripping with corruption. The most obvious example of that being the anonymously added provision that would allow 8 Republican senators to steal, essentially, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the American taxpayer.
The provision would make it a violation of the law to not notify a senator if their phone records or other metadata was taken from a service provider like a phone company, and here's the best part. The provision would be retroactive to 2022, which conveniently would mean that the 8 lawmakers whose phone records were subpoenaed by investigators for Mr. Smith as he examined the efforts of Donald J. Trump to obstruct the results of the 2020 presidential election would be eligible. Each violation would be worth at least $500,000 in any legal claim, according to the bill language. The bill would also sharply limit the way the government could resist such a claim, taking away any government claims of qualified or sovereign immunity to fight a lawsuit over the issue. They added a way to give 8 of them money, and we don't know which Republican added this in, but I have at least 8 we should look at first.
Even Republicans are calling out how insane it is that senators would be able to sue the United States government for what was a obviously legal investigation. This member of the Guardians of the Pedophile Party, John Rose, tried to get a separate bill passed that would essentially undo the provision. He said, "I just introduced a bill to repeal the Senate's last-minute provision allowing senators to sue American taxpayers over Biden DOJ investigations, past or future. 2 wrongs don't make a right." But of course, this separate bill completely failed because it's an empty gesture. Like, if you really think that this provision is this bad, then just don't vote for the CR. What's crazy about this bill is that because of SNAP and ACA subsidies being such a big part of the conversation, no one even noticed these poison pills until days after the bill passed. It seems like the mainstream media hasn't even caught on just to how much poison was stuffed into this thing. And I mean literally poison. David Sirota from The Lever dropped this scoop. Senators quietly put language into the shutdown deal, helping their donors block rules to prevent food contamination and foodborne illnesses at farms and restaurants. The provision came amid an explosion of foodborne illnesses. As with all evil in politics, this comes at the hands of lobbyists, whose hands are of course filled with money, which the politicians are glad to accept. at the small cost of our lives and safety. Here's the headline from The Lever: Shutdown deal kills food safety rules. After lobbyists spent big on the Trump administration and Democratic defectors, the government funding bill cut food contamination rules and limited ultra-processed food research. One of the rules being targeted would institute new record-keeping standards for food companies, so federal agencies can more easily identify the origin of any foodborne illness outbreaks, among other potential safety risks. The new funding bill blocks federal rules designed to trace sources of outbreaks and to prevent contamination of produce. One provision in the legislation states that no funds may be used to administer or enforce the requirements for additional traceability records for certain foods that was published on November 21st, 2022. So essentially, because Republican donors don't like this bill that was passed in 2022, they snuck in a provision that would essentially make the law unenforceable by cutting the funds. But that's not the only thing they snuck in. On page 133 of the funding package, a line states that none of the funds made available by the bill can be used to enforce a 2015 FDA rule that required stricter inspections for wine grapes, hops, almonds, and certain other crops. The rule also established water quality standards for watering produce and hygienic practices for farm workers to limit produce contamination. So they essentially made it easier for alcohol companies to use contaminated water in their products, which is just one of the major gifts that the Republicans gave to the alcohol industry in this bill. Additionally, the bill made it harder to track high-sodium foods, which isn't exactly MAGA, so I'm sure Robert F. K. Jr. is going to be right on this one. Here's the second major gift that the Republicans gave to the alcohol industry, because, of course, they weren't done making Americans sicker and less healthy. This is maybe the most impactful provision. It was added last minute by Satan's tortoise, Mitch McConnell, and it threatens the $28 billion hemp and CBD industry. This is Evan Kilgore, who is in the libertarian part of the MAGA coalition, and he is devastated by this bill. The hemp provision in the appropriations package will destroy my family's livelihood overnight. It will destroy my livelihood and the livelihoods of our employees. It will destroy a $20+ billion industry that many Americans rely on as an alternative to Big Pharma. This hemp provision is an attack on the American people, and it's an attack on me personally. The American dream is being destroyed by big business and lobbies. Dude, welcome to capitalist America. A lot of these MAGA losers are just now realizing this week that they voted to ruin their own lives. And you know what? This realization is kind of cushioning the blow for me. After seeing the Democrats cave, these stories are kind of like silver linings. This is Sarah Fields, another free-thinking Republican MAGA rube, who's freaking out now because, poof, there goes their entire livelihood. They were foolish enough to expect the Republicans not to screw them over like they always do. Sarah says, "Just spoke with my friend John Burke. All the work we did to fight the hemp ban last year means nothing, since they simply quietly snuck the ban into a funding bill. What is the point in making our voices heard if they find a way to get what they want one way or another?" John Burke said this will destroy 70% of his business, and hundreds of other businesses, as well as families with special needs, will feel the effect of this. Now, the best explanation about what this provision is and does comes, ironically, from Rand Paul, one of the few Republican senators who tried to get this provision removed and, to his credit, voted no on the CR, which literally pains me to say. Rand Paul writes, "The government is open, but a hemp industry shutdown has just begun. In true Washington swamp fashion, this hemp bill is not being debated on its own. Once again, Congress created a crisis, then conveniently used the crisis to jam through new laws without debate. Nearly 100% of hemp products currently sold will be illegal." The justification for this hemp ban, we are told, is that some bad actors are skirting the legal limits by enhancing the concentrations of THC in their products. But the provision that was inserted into the government funding bill makes it illegal for any hemp product to contain more than 0.4 milligrams of THC per container. That would be nearly 100% of hemp products currently sold. This is so low that it takes away any benefit of the current products intended to manage pain or other conditions. So you might be hearing people say, oh, well, CBD isn't being banned, or not all hemp is being banned. But this 0.4 milligrams of THC per container is such a low threshold that even products sold just for medicinal use, no psychoactive qualities whatsoever, just CBD for back pain or whatever, or even for a dog, that probably has 0.4 milligrams of THC in it. It is such a trace amount that this ban would effectively get rid of all of those products. And who do we have to thank for this? Of course, Mitch McConnell. Despite celebrating the hemp industry in his own state of Kentucky and promising to work toward protecting the industry, Mitch the bitch decided to put hundreds of thousands of people out of work by ham-fisting this provision into a bill that was must-pass for his party. And why did he do it? Well, it might have something to do with the nearly $900,000 that Mitch McConnell received from the beer, wine, and liquor industry, which has long lobbied to keep their biggest competitor, THC, off the shelves. You'll notice that the biggest recipients on this list are Democrats. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that the Democratic Party has long dragged their feet on legalization, despite it being like an 80-20 issue with the Democratic base. But anyway, it is insane that the Republicans are pearl-clutching right now about people smoking a little ganja because their backs hurt, while bending over backwards to defend a literal pedo in the White House. As this user Jamie Bonkowitz put it, there are literal PDF files in the White House, and the Senate is out here trying to ban THC. The United States Senate is a fucking joke, a bunch of billionaire hacks. That is exactly right. We have to remember that this whole push came from the alcohol industry, which, by the way, is much more dangerous than hemp. Alcohol kills 178,000 people a year. Just in the United States, including one of my dear friends just this year. It is a poison that kills you. That intoxication that you feel when you're drinking is literally your body dying. Meanwhile, there have been 0 documented deaths from cannabis ever. Not only that, but in the 7 years since the 2018 Farm Bill that made CBD a legal product, it has helped people from epilepsy to cancer recover or deal with their pain without any major side effects because, again, it's perfectly safe. Now, it may just be wishful thinking on my part, but I think that the Trump administration has been bleeding goodwill since they took office this year. And I don't think stopping people from eating their nightly CBD gummies while feeding them contaminated food is going to win them any votes in the midterms. Be sure to subscribe to Really American for all the news that MAGA hates to hear. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll catch you next time.